Hello again. This is another world building video. And I talked a little bit before about having an idea that starts out your setting. It can be a very simple statement and you just add layers of complexity on as you go. There's more to it, really. You really have to worry a little bit about balance, about how things interact in your setting. You don't want to include anything that is going to, break everything. Something that doesn't make sense, or depending on how you make your setting, you don't want anything that maybe is too silly, unless that's what the campaign is going to be, a silly campaign. You want things in your setting that are interesting and cool, and you don't want anything that's really going to break the immersion for the players. Like maybe some race that they think, like the player is thinking, this is dumb. I don't think this is cool at all. And what's tough about world building is it's your creation, and the things that you like, other people might not, and that's a tough thing sometimes to take. Where maybe something that you spent, I don't know, 4 to 6 hours making one night, a year ago, finally gets into the campaign, and you're a little excited about it, see what the player's going to think. And maybe as maybe there's some combat or something that's going on, and maybe one of the players makes a little, joke like on the side, like, this is the dumbest race I've ever heard of. This culture is ridiculous. Who would ever put, who would ever make a Viking and Mayan culture, or whatever. And you kind of you have to have a little bit of a thick skin, I think, when you put so much creative effort into something that you really enjoy. And you just have to, understand that what you like and dislike is not what everyone else likes and dislikes. You can't make everybody happy. So when you're making a setting, you have to sort of understand that there might be certain elements of it that they don't like. This can be kind of avoided a little bit. My cuckoo clock. This can be kind of avoided a little bit if you know your players, if you have a standard RPG group that you meet with pretty regularly. And you can kind of think like, okay, so Brian really likes to kill stuff, so I have to have some sort of element in the campaign where, things are gonna be mean, and then they die horrible deaths because they get chopped and have a bunch of holes poked in them, because that's what he wants in the setting. So depending on your group, that can also affect how you make a setting and what you want to show them that's interesting in it. Or maybe if you have a group, maybe you kind of say, well, you like this kind of game, so maybe you should play up here in the northwest of the setting where, that's more geared towards your type of style of play. Like if they really like hack and slash and combat, then there's some ancient ruins up here, and there's a possibility of a very big dungeon, and you can have multiple areas in your setting that can kind of appease different players. Maybe there's an area that's very peaceful, but there's lots of political intrigue and backstabbing and generational like hatred of families and family lines, and maybe you're 5 people removed from the king, and if these 4 people die, then you become king. Things like that. You can have different areas that that you can put in the setting, and you can think, okay, if I ever run a campaign, I know Brian will want to go up here to the dungeon, but Seth is going to want to go down here and do some politics. So maybe the campaign sort of meanders so that all the players get a little bit of like me time, where they're like, yeah, that was great, let's go back up north, and the other guy's like, no, we need to go south and do this first, and then we'll go back north. So when you're making a setting, you really need to think of your players and what they're going to like. In the beginning of the other video, I was talking about how the setting that you make is for the players mostly. But with the advent of the internet and how easy it is to get online now, you can put your setting online for free. Yes, you can try to sell your setting, but to be honest, there's so many settings out there, it's kind of a flooded market. You're going to have a hard time with it, unless it's just really, really cool. You can get yourself like a free HTML website, put up a few maps. They don't even really have to be good maps, just so there's some place and some name and the relation of each place. So, you can make a map in like Paint or Illustrator or something like that, if you have that talent. But a free website or a wiki or some other thing like that is a nice way of sharing all your hard work. So what I was talking about these settings is that sometimes players don't like them. I made the ice world that I've done a few videos of, and after a setting, after one time playing through the setting, one of the players was like, I understand where you're going, like man versus nature, and kind of like a dying world, and the gods were at one point alive and now they're not. So it's not a question of do they exist, but they did exist, now they don't anymore. But he didn't really like that. He's like, what? Just the combination of things is, I don't know, it doesn't work for me. I don't really enjoy that. And at the time, I was like, oh man, that's tough, because I spent all this time working on things and making different maps for cities and towns, and like 3 of the kingdoms I mapped out. And that kind of stopped me there for a while. I haven't really done much with it since. It's just kind of been floating around on the internet, and hopefully somebody has used some ideas from it, but maybe not. But that's the nice thing about the internet. Like, you can really just world build to world build now if you really want to, and someone's going to see it, other than your 4 to 6 players or whatever in your campaign. So that's a nice thing about it. You can spend some time with it, and some people can see it online. But there's different ways of even going about doing just world building in general. You can start out very small, like a very small area on the map. And maybe there's a mountain range to the north and some rivers, or a river, a town, maybe a city, depending on what kind of flavor your campaign is. And maybe that's all the setting is. It's just the area that the players are going to interact with. And maybe you really don't even need to have a large map. Some people like to have that big, large map. Maybe in the game you're running, you say that no one's ever been past the mountains. Or if they have, they never returned. Here be monsters is on the map all the way around, in the mountains, past the river. And maybe no one in your setting knows anything more than that. Some people like a little bit broader settings, so they'll have a giant map, and yes, you're still in this one kingdom over here, but then you know what other kingdoms there are, and maybe some rumors of what's going on there. Maybe some locations of some major cities and ports. But it really comes down to you. How do you like to do things? You can start small and work up as the players interact with the world, or you can start big. You can think of the gods and the deities and how they affect everything. Are they distant? Are they involved in the setting? Things like the stars and other additional planets or moons. Just like just the big monumental things you can think about, and then you work your way down. You come up with kingdoms, and then maybe kings and different types of governments in certain kingdoms. Maybe you go down to the cities and come up with some interesting ideas for those. My big warning, however, is that if you do that from the top down, be prepared to do a lot of work. And be prepared to do a lot of work that your players are probably never going to see. And that's probably the biggest downfall of that. Whereas the other method is, if you just have to make a little local area, you don't really have to worry about much of the big stuff. Yes, you might have to come up with maybe a god or two, or more gods, just so that there's some sort of religion in that small area. But you might not have to be inclusive about all the different gods that are in the world and that are worshipped. So you can either start really big and work your way down. You can start small, work your way up. And you can even just, you just think about what kind of flavor you want in the campaign and sort of try to focus on those areas in the setting that have that flavor. It really is a very broad topic about world building and how you do things and what you like and dislike. But I really enjoy it. Another video next.